All right, gotta keep it moving along. This is part 6 of the presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
I want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century.
Wait, what?
But let's understand.
So where the fuck are we right now?
That one was immediately and widely debunked by the people currently in the combat zones.
But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this. And the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not, again, appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind.
All right, so there was a lot there. A lot of, well, I would have done this, they're doing this, but I would have done it this way. So it's shoulda, coulda, woulda. We can't really fact check that. Kamala Harris did very good here. I thought she was going to make a face. I thought she was going to try to make a funny face during this topic. She would have just lost the debate at that point. Very proud of her. Trump's numbers, not even close. The Pentagon estimates it was about $7 billion, which still isn't good.
I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here tonight. Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm asking.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read
she wanted
that
to let those faces out so bad, you could tell. But yeah, there was no answer for that. When he said that during his rally, I'm like, yeah, you will be hearing about that, and Kamala Harris will use that against you, and rightfully so.
It's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
Honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to black families.
So I can't count that as a lie because she said investigated, which he was, but it wasn't proven. In October 1973, the Civil Rights Division filed a lawsuit against Trump Management Company, Donald Trump and his father Fred Trump, alleging that African Americans and Puerto Ricans were systematically excluded from apartments. The Trumps responded with a $100 million countersuit, accusing the government of defamation. The Trumps and their company entered into a consent decree settling the litigation in 1975. The agreement contained no admission of wrongdoing, but required the Trump firm to institute a series of safeguards to make sure apartments were rented without regard to race, color, religion, gender, or national origin.
Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution.
Nope, that's not what he did. I'm about to read the entire page that he put out in the New York Times. What has happened to our city over the past 10 years? What has happened to law and order? To the neighborhood cop we all trusted to safeguard our homes and families. The cop who had the power under the law to help us in times of danger. Keep us safe from those who would prey on innocent lives to fulfill some distorted inner need. What has happened to the respect for authority, the fear of retribution by the courts, society, and the police for those who break the law? For those who wantonly trespass on the right of others. What has happened is complete breakdown of life as we know it. Many New York families, white, black, Hispanic, and Asian, have had to give up the pleasure of a leisurely stroll in the park at dusk, the Saturday visit to the playground with their families, the bike ride at dawn, or just sitting on their stoops, giving them up as hostages to a world ruled by the law of the streets, as roving bands of wild criminals roam our neighborhoods, dispensing their own vicious brand of twisted hatred on whomever they encounter. At what point did we cross the line from the fine and noble pursuit of genuine civil liberties to the reckless and dangerously permissive atmosphere which allows criminals of every age to beat and sexually assault a helpless woman and then laugh at their family's anguish? Why do they laugh? They laugh because they know very soon they will be returned to the streets to do the same thing once again, and yet face no great personal risk to themselves. There's a lot of run-on sentences. I thought I was reading a paragraph. It was one sentence. Mayor Koch has stated that hate and rancor should be removed from our hearts. I do not think so. I want to hate these people. They should be forced to suffer, and when they kill, they should face capital punishment for their crimes. They must serve as examples so that others will think long and hard before committing a crime or an act of violence. Yes, Mayor Koch, I want to hate these people, and I always will. I'm not looking to psychoanalyze or understand them. I am looking to punish them. If the punishment is strong, the attacks on innocent people will stop. I recently watched a newscast trying to explain the anger in these young men. I no longer want to understand their anger. I want them to understand our anger. I want them to be afraid. How can our great society tolerate the continued brutalization of its citizens by crazed misfits? Criminals must be told that their civil liberties end when an attack on our safety begins. When I was young, I sat in a diner with my father and witnessed 2 young bullies cursing and threatening a very frightened waitress. 2 cops rushed in, lifted the thugs, and threw them out the door, warning them never to cause trouble again. I miss the feeling of security New York's finest once gave the citizens of the city. Let our politicians give back our police department's power to keep us safe. Unshackle them from the constant chant of police brutality, which every petty criminal hurls immediately at an officer who has just risked his or her life to save another's. We must cease the continuous pandering to the criminal population of the city. Give New York back to the citizens who have earned the right to be New Yorkers. Bring back capital punishment and bring back our police. Now, this was during the Central Park 5 case, but he didn't specifically mention them.
This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this.
They want better than Kamala Harris, too. Right before the media push, Kamala Harris's approval rating was much lower than Trump's. Now, she's very accurately depicting Trump, but she doesn't realize that the American population thinks she's about 1 to 2% better. Tim Walz says he's actually losing sleep why they're not 10 points ahead. Hillary Clinton said the same thing, but 50 points. I'll say it this way. With the exception of the partisan hacks that come out once every 4 years, the way that politicians look at Trump is the way that the American public looks at politicians.
I want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people?
I agree, and it would be great if you guys actually answered the question. You said that, but you brought up his crowd size like 45 minutes ago. Oh, your crowds are bigger? Oh, people leave his crowds earlier? Yeah, tell me, how are you going to lower the cost of groceries? That's what people are worried about.
And they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person, ultimately.
That's not true. She actually wrote a book on it.
And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world.
I have to mark that one too. When he became president, the United States was already the strongest economy in the history of the world. He maintained it.
And it's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Okay, so most fact checkers would say that he didn't tell the truth twice when he said inflation is the highest just now and about an hour ago. But I'm going to mark that as one, because Kamala Harris did the same thing. I only counted hers as one.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country.
Which is, okay, so this is crazy, because she's 60, and she says that she's a new generation of leadership. Well, Biden's like in his 80s. Technically, she's not wrong, but she's the average age of a politician. When we mean new age, we mean like younger politicians. Like Obama, when he was in his 40s and became president. That's a new generation of leadership. Like, you're 60.
One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging.
See, this is the problem with having a speechwriter. Like, they must have wrote that one first and then all of the attacks that she just spent an hour and a half doing. She spent a full hour, like, making fun of him and making faces at him.
The American people, I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight.
Exactly. Took you an hour and 15 minutes to realize that you're talking about Putin sitting in Kiev under some hypothetical, bringing up crowd sizes, talking about people calling him weak and pathetic. Like, you finally get your mistakes in this debate tonight.
As opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page.
Oh, you're talking about him.
Let's turn the page.
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
Thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President Trump, we have to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
She has a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
So, the whole defund the police thing is kind of old at this point. They clearly lost. But she did praise the defund the police movement in a June 2020 radio show. I have to mark the second one as not true because he said everyone's. Same with the third because she has flip-flopped on the issue, hasn't given a concrete answer on fracking. All right, I got a lot covered on that one. One more. The next video will be the final video covering this. These guys have lied so much, it is like carving into my sanity.